Welcome back to the way we farm. The calendar might say it's spring, but the weather outside doesn't. It's snowing, it's cold, but better days are coming. So we're going to do a throwback to last spring when we were prepping ground for corn, soybeans, dried beans. So we strip till in Western New York. So if you don't know what strip till is, we were using an underfoot last year with a coulter on the front, a shank, closing coulters, and them nice little rolling baskets on the back. So we only work that strip of soil. We come back, we plant on that strip with RTK, and we put our fertilizer down for corn. We put down 28% nitrogen cut with ammonium sulfate. And when we do beans, soybeans, or dry beans, we typically don't put anything through the strip tiller. We just put a 2x2 on with the planter. So we want to pretend spring is here. So we're going to put out a video that shows the warmer days that are coming. And we are excited about 2023. So in Western New York, a lot of people do full width tillage, if you will, but we try to avoid it. Spring of 2022, the fall before we made a lot of mud ruts with the combine. It rained and it rained and it rained and it rained. So we had to go in with a disc this spring and level up some ruts. So we did that with a couple different tractors with a 30-foot Kraus disc. Sometimes we pulled a 30-foot color packer, sometimes we didn't. So we thought working in some fertilizer with the disc would help our soybean yield. So we worked in some fertilizer. We had a couple fields we didn't work in much fertilizer. We planted a lot of our beans in 15-inch rows, and I don't know, it didn't work out quite as well as we were hoping. So this year we're going to go back to probably 30-inch rows, go in and strip till ahead of the planter, come in, plant 30-inch rows, and on some of our drier ground, we're going to go to 7.5-inch rows with an air seeder. So you're going to see this coming year, we've changed some equipment. So you're not going to see the little 6-row zone builder. You're going to see a 12-row Gladiator. And we are going to update to we bought a 30-foot John Deere air seeder. We're going to use that instead of using the Kinsey planting 15-inch rows. The Kinsey was a great planter, but it was a little bit narrow and it just didn't get the fertilizer placement. We still like in Western New York using 2x2 fertilizer, get the fertilizer right next to the seed. So the other thing we do in Western New York is a lot of places in the country have done this. 20 years ago, it was unheard of to plant your soybeans ahead of corn. But we have some dry ground that we typically can get on before we can get corn ground ready. We've got one particular farm we rent that it just doesn't have enough topsoil to grow great corn. So our rotation there is soybeans one year, then we can come back that fall right after we harvest the soybeans. We no-till wheat in. After we take the wheat off, we put a cover crop mix on it. So we always plant that farm of soybeans before we get started planting corn. So the Kinsey with the 15-inch row spacing worked pretty well, but we think we could get a little better yields if we go back to strip tilling ahead of soybeans. Then once we're done strip tilling, we'll come back in with RTK. So most people know what that is, but we're going to come back with auto steer that's going to have repeatability, sub inch or sub quarter inch repeatability. And we're going to plant on the same exact zones, but on our planter, we're going to have liquid fertilizer putting down some 7-21-7 or some 9-25-3 or something similar. We're going to put about 20 gallons an acre on in a 2x2-inch starter fertilizer band. We seem to get the best soybeans that way. So the other thing I like is the fact that when we have our 2x2 fertilizer in 30-inch rows, we get a little more airflow on the good ground so we don't have a white mold problem. So this year we're going back to planting our soybeans, probably with our 12-row 1770 narrow transport planter, putting down starter fertilizer, 30-inch rows, go back to the old way, and on the gravel ground we're going to plant with our air seeder, 7.5-inch rows, and see how that goes. So at the same time we're planting soybeans, then we start mixing corn into the mix. We like to get our corn in. Usually we start planting here in Western New York the last week of April. Last few years it's been the 10th of May before we could get any corn in the ground. But ideally we'd have all our corn in by the 20th of May, but we planted as late as the 10th of June and still had halfway decent corn. So this year we're going to plant almost the majority of our corn is going to go behind the strip tiller. And we're going to put the nitrogen down with the strip tiller in the soil about 8 inches deep. We'll probably run the strip tiller about 10 inches deep, and we'll come back and plant on those same strips in a few weeks. Well, sometimes we plant a day or two later. Sometimes it's a couple of weeks. Depends on the weather. Depends on the temperature. I really prefer to plant my corn when the soil's warm. Soybeans seem to be tougher. So we plant our corn with a 1770 narrow transport. We've got starter fertilizer. We put down 20 to 25 gallons of some type of starter mix. Usually it's a 721-7 or a 925-3, something similar. We also, you'll notice on our planter, we have a white tank that holds water and a little white tank up front. Last year and this year, we're using Pivot Bio, a nitrogen product that's supposed to help the plants make their own nitrogen. Last year was a super dry year. We didn't see the results we were hoping to see, but in average year, they claim we're going to see results. So that's what the little pop-up fertilizer tank on the back. We're going to try some pop-up fertilizer, but last year it just held water, so we could apply the Pivot Bio. So my second favorite crop to grow is corn. It's hard to beat growing a good crop of corn. I really enjoy it. I love planting it. I love watching it grow. I love harvesting it, drying it, trucking it, everything about it. It's a great crop. So coming up is my favorite crop to grow. Stay tuned. So my favorite crop, you might ask, that would be dry beans. I like growing black beans, edible beans, black turtle soup beans. They have a lot of names, but we plant our edible beans in 30-inch rows as well. We use about 20 gallons of starter fertilizer. We plant about a 85 to 90,000 population on those, and not as thick as soybeans, but we've had some good yields at that population. So if everything goes right, we strip till the ground. We try to have a cover crop on the dry bean ground because it gets harvested. Excuse me, they get planted like the 10th or the 20th of June. So we like to put a cover crop of wheat or something on after we take the corn off in the fall. By the first June, when we come in to spray that ground to kill the cover crop, we usually got a decent cover crop. It holds moisture, suppresses weeds, works good. So this year we're going to try something different potentially. We might try planting some pinto beans here in Western New York. There's not many grown in New York State, but we're going to give those a try. So when we're done planting the black beans or the pinto beans, or even if you guys grow some kidney beans, we go over them with a 35-foot packer. So we try to pack the stones down. We pick the stones as we go. It makes it easier to direct cut the beans. We come in the fall. We direct cut them with a flex head, and it works pretty well. So they are my favorite crop to grow. If everything goes great, there's nothing cooler than harvesting a nice crop of edible beans. So we do a little bit of custom work for some neighbors harvesting dry beans. We do our own. We don't grow that many acres of them, but man, when things go great, they are fun. So thanks for watching this week's edition of The Way We Farm. We'll in a couple months, we're going to have some brand new footage of all our new equipment we're going to be running this year, and we're excited to show you those. And as always, thanks for watching and follow along. We'll see you on next week's edition.